Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this 27th day of May 2014. I am your host, Alex Jones. We're going to be live here for the next 3 hours. And as usual, there is ultra-massive amounts of news and information that we are going to be covering in great detail today. And as usual, I don't even know where to start. There is so much of it. But Daniel Estulin, Bilderberg Hunter, will be joining us coming up in the third hour with a lot of inside intel on the top globalist confab's agenda. Paul Watson wrote an article last week detailing a lot of key information. In fact, we're going to reprint that article with Bilderberg Group member admits that it's the most powerful organization in the world. Paul Watson has a new article out today, Bilderberg Agenda Revealed, Elite Desperate to Rescue Unipolar World. And the globalists basically admit in public statements, but also from our sources, that their world government is in deep trouble. So we're going to be breaking all of that down today. We would already have reporters on the ground in Switzerland. In fact, Paul Watson, not Switzerland, in Copenhagen, Denmark. Paul Watson went to Switzerland before that a few years ago, hence the slip. Paul Watson is already in Denmark. We're going to get him to pop in later in the transmission as well. David Knight and Josh Owens were delayed because of ultra-massive storms all over Texas yesterday that canceled all flights in Houston, where they were about to get on a plane and get over to Europe. But they should be over there. They should be getting on a plane in a few minutes and be over there as well to give us live video feeds and more from Bilderberg 2014. Also, you may notice my voice is hoarse. I don't even really have a sore throat. I don't know what's in the air or what's going on, but this is what my larynx sounds like. So I'm here, but it will sound even more frog-like than normal. I didn't realize until I got on air just how hoarse I am. So I'm going to try some lung cleanse from InfoWarsLife.com, see how it does. Maybe some olive oil. Yeah, that helps a little bit, but it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. I got some swelling in one of my lymph nodes right here. I don't know what that is. But it certainly helped, though. You can hear it. Essential oils in it are vital. Normally, if my throat is a little tired or whatever, that just knocks it right out. But it's bad enough where it's only cut to 20, 30%. So I'll continue to use I'm not trying to product place here. We obviously fund the operation selling products at InfoWarsLife.com. I just literally forgot to take it. So that's what I was doing right now. It's like my throat doesn't even hurt. It's like tiring to talk. I don't know how to describe it. It's weird. It was like this on Friday, and I did the Sunday show live. I thought it would go away, but it hasn't gone away yet. I need to go see a speech specialist or something. All the years of yelling and screaming is how my voice got so gravelly, got more and more gravelly, and then now, last Thursday, I blew up a bunch, started screaming on air. Over the 3 hours, probably 30 minutes of screaming. And it's not an act, folks. I mean, when I scream, I really start yelling. And it just tears up my larynx, and I've just got to stop it. I've had a lot of speech experts, well-known ones, contact me and say, I'll give you free consultations. You need to come get lessons now, or you're not going to have a voice in another 10 years. And you know what? I think they're right. I think I need to get my crap together and take care of my voice, because I may have an interesting signature voice from tearing it up, but then you can go over the mountain to the next level of not having a voice. So we've got those issues as well. We're going to take a lot of phone calls today. I want to get your comments on the state of the world and more. When we come back, I'll give the number out. Quite frankly, I'll just lean on the listeners. But just please, I'm just telling you why my voice is like this. Please don't call in and tell me you hope it gets better, okay? We'll be right back. Stay with us. Feels like a Monday with Memorial Day passing, but it's Tuesday. And I'm just going to try as best I can to read headlines right now for everyone out there. Let's just start on the right-hand side and move to the left here. Biggest yet, Greenwald to publish names of Americans whom NSA is spying on. Suspended animation trials to begin on humans. From CNET News. Bilderberg agenda revealed, elite desperate to rescue their world government. That's up on Infowars.com with our reporters, Paul Watson and others who are now on the ground in Copenhagen, Denmark, and will be reporting live throughout the week. Continuing, we'll be breaking all this down today. First Lady set to respond to school meal critics. Why is the First Lady in charge of what our children eat? Why do we even have states or local governments or parents? I mean, there's nothing we won't put up with in this country. Retired officers poised to profit after Pentagon's alarmist climate change report. It turns out that all of the generals and other officers that are in a private consortium paid for with taxpayer money via the Pentagon, putting out what they call absolutely objective, with total objectivity, and they're all political hacks pushing carbon taxes openly and saying why the Pentagon says, why NASA says we're all dead if we don't pay the world government trillions a year in carbon taxes, and more importantly, surveil every part of the economy. And then we have NBC, Good Morning America clips, you name it, going, they're objective, they're former generals and don't have an axe to grind. They say it's real. Why? They're generals. See, because they know you don't listen to politicians anymore. They know you don't listen to media pundits anymore. You don't trust them. But generals, well, you know they are getting paid to put this bull out. So that's coming up today. Tea Party poised for big wins in Texas, and another sign that the Tea Party is the only opposition to the establishment right now. 1%er wealth of Hillary Clinton complicates image as populist champion. She's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, in real money, nobody knows. She gets $200,000 a speech. That's a delayed payoff. That's how you influence peddle, folks, is you pay people to give speeches years after they've delivered the goods for you. Of course, there's nothing wrong with being wealthy if you didn't steal your money. In the case of Hillary Clinton, though, it does mess up her socialist anti-wealth persona. And the Hill reports Hillary leaves the left cold. They're sick of her and they don't like her. Well, that means they have to be force-fed her. You know, just tell the Democrats, well, people don't like her because she's a woman. Politico has the headline, the wary of Hillary Democrats. Everybody's sick of the establishment. That's what's happening. So that's just some of the news on that front. And again, I'm not even covering these headlines in a list of most important to least important. I'm just I've got to get to this. So I'm just at least mentioning the stories. This one has got to be a top story, or one of the top stories, because it illustrates everything we're talking about. It's in the Daily Mail out of the UK. BBC mauled for ruling girl is an offensive word. Members of Parliament lead growing outcry at political correct censorship. Now, let's stop right there. When you hear that, what have you been conditioned to say in your mind? What are you thinking when I just read that headline, that if you use the word girl, you can be arrested? Oh, it's worse than this headline says. You're thinking, that's stupid. That's idiotic. That doesn't make any sense. You know, the drug wars failed. Environmentalist wackos are nuts. No, they're not. They rule. The big drug companies like Pfizer and Bayer and others were always the main distributors of opium. And when opium monopolies got broken, they just made it illegal so they could control it. You're saying, what does that have to do with this? The establishment aren't idiots. They're not wackos. It's not that they're weird. They rule the culture. And when people stop laughing at stuff like this, we will have a chance to start turning this society worldwide around. It is 1984, destruction of language, teaching people that every word out there is bad, and giving the adherents of the politically correct priesthood power to peck you on the top of the head politically or disappear you into their bureaucratic social worker system whenever they feel like it. They are defining everything as a thought crime. So we're going to be breaking that down today at the bottom of the hour. That's a very important article. I want to detail it more. But this is how you reduce the language. All over the nation, they're saying no more Halloween parties unless at colleges, unless it's an authorized list of costumes. And, of course, that list will get smaller and smaller. You can't have a Native American. You can't have a geisha girl. You can't have a guy in a sombrero. You can't have anything. You can't have taco parties or siestas or fiestas. You can't have a fiesta party because someone might be offended. And there's no free speech. They're just teaching you there's no free speech. Just like they told the churches in the 1950s, you still have your tax exemption under the First Amendment. Go get a 501c3 and you waive your rights and then become a government-run charity. It is not rhetoric to say we have state-run churches in this country. They officially are. I just want that to sink in. I mean, I'm looking at the headline here. Where the New York Times is reporting, quote, tech firms attack law allowing feds to read email without warrant. Notice how we go from 6-7 years ago that no one's reading anything without a warrant. You're a crazy five-headed kook, lunatic Alex Jones, if you say that. To, oh, the tech firms don't like the fact that all the emails go through the government servers first, and they have giant snooping arms inside their systems. Now, the tech firms have a strategy, the big ones. They're behind all this. They're spying more than the NSA. They are the NSA. Where they don't want to be sued, so they're acting like they're against all this. Yahoo and Google and Facebook and Apple. Meanwhile, Apple runs death camps, basically, in China with suicide nets, forced abortions, forced medical exam facilities, and you see video of the people at their factories. They literally look like zombies out of a horror movie. They take them, warehouse them for their organs, DNA, test them, like the movie Coma from the 70s, and take you to a mobile execution van, kill you on the way to the airport to fly your organs into Japan, where every day people get off the planes from the West to get, quote, the freshest organs. A Chinese government promo brochure a few years ago we covered said, in the Chinese translation into English, we have the freshest organs. This is what Apple will do to you and your family. This is what all these trendy Google operations, all of it, when they have control and they have an authoritarian regime to work with, you are below the level of scum. You are to be sucked up and used. You are trash. And you are seen as trash by people that believe they're gods. You take the words of Elliot Rodger, where he said, I'm a god, and I'm going to kill you. How many hundreds of times have I told you that's the elite's attitude? He was a product of a rich, wealthy, elitist, disconnected system, and he was on psychotropic drugs that now is coming out since age 8. He was a total product of being a modern demon. Now critics blame shooting on white male Hollywood, and feminist groups are coming out saying this is why we need gun control. Yes, yes. Wouldn't it be pro-woman to arm women and teach women how to fight? Conservatives and libertarians teach their daughters how to fight, how to shoot guns. By the way, if you don't inhibit a woman being aggressive, they're vicious. my 9-year-old daughter, well, she's 10 now, just turned 10, can actually beat me up. I mean, I could beat her in a fight, obviously, but what I mean is when she's wrestling or punching me, it hurts. She's strong. I mean, I have to, when she's wrestling with me, I have to really put strength into it to control her. And she, you know, her and my 11-year-old son get in fights and wrestle, and I mean, and he's big. And, you know, my dad's tickled my mother before, and she knocked him out with a boot, steel-toe boot, hit him in the head with it. It was an unconscious, you know, flinch doing it. The whole point is that's feminism, to empower women to be strong because they're just part of the tribe. We want the whole tribe to be strong. Modern feminism is about isolating women, destroying women, turning them into sexual objects, and wives to the state. The state is now your father. Here is the clip of Elliot Rodger, the reported shooter of 4 people, including himself, stabber of 3 others, so 6 that he killed, half died by knives. We had several articles about that over the weekend at Infowars.com, but the controlled corporate press is basically saying it's all because of guns. Senator Blumenthal has reintroduced bills to restrict the Second Amendment following the California shooting. And then there's not a debate about how many psychotropic drugs was this guy on. I mean, I took one look at him and I said, I guarantee you that guy has been in the psychiatric system for most of his life. Well, it's in the Associated Press now since age 8. And they are saying that he was being treated for, quote, Asperger's with medication. We don't know what type. Well, we should do the investigation and have the headline. What drugs was Santa Barbara shooter on? Illness, not misogyny, made Elliot Rodgers kill. Yeah, no kidding. And you're never going to stop crazy. You have more guns, and they'll have less chance to kill more people, and that's been happening. The total number of shootings is down 52% since 1992, Justice Department-owned numbers. But see, reality doesn't have a very good shot, does it, in an age of deception? To have a bunch of people grandstand up there and say, collectively, gun owners are to blame. Well, do you want to take the blame out there as a gun owner? How about as a knife owner? I bet even the people out there that don't like guns and don't own guns, they are a minority in this country, about 45%. I bet you've got knives and baseball bats and golf clubs and I bet you've got a stainless steel vase that you could club somebody's brains out with, or a hammer. You could kill people easier with a hammer than with a butcher knife in a lot of cases. Now, I want to ask you right now, there are thousands of murders a year with baseball bats and hammers. Why have you not turned them in? You are to blame. This is madness. Not one more person can be allowed to die in this country by murder, by homicide, by the hands of another. And people are using cars to kill people by the hundreds on purpose. Ban all cars. They are using knives to kill people by the thousands. Ban them. Ban them now. How dare gun owners not turn their guns in with Sandy Hook and Aurora and now this? How dare you? We cannot wait one more day. This cannot happen one more time. Ooh. That's what the media is putting out. And then all these victims' families who are being manipulated in their pain are crying on television, literally believing the propaganda that it's gun owners' fault. That the psychiatric system had this guy hopped up on stuff that the inserts says will make you kill people. And yes, folks, I'm saying he was on drugs. They admit he was being treated with medication, but they won't say what, because they don't want the blame. Because every time this happens, it takes 2 weeks to a month, and then it comes out with Adam Lanza and Holmes and Kip Kinkle and Harris and Klebold that they were on multiple serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, and Adderall and Ritalin. You put people on speed. I have done methamphetamine 2 or 3 times in my life. I always say twice, but it was actually 3 times. I was thinking about it a few weeks ago. And I remember all 3 times I felt completely crazy, completely aggressive, and walked around with my buddies. I was like a teenager, for miles every day, and then day 2 would vomit everywhere and feel horrible for 2 days after. I'm like, how would anyone take this? And I've talked to people that are on Adderall and Ritalin, and they say it's similar. I mean, they're putting kids on hardcore drugs, ladies and gentlemen. Hardcore. Hardcore. And, of course, they're completely whacked out of their brains. Bathing in California in the narcissistic, sick culture, bathing in the fakeness, bathing in everyone acting like they don't care about anybody else and trying to pose and act snobby. I mean, I got to tell you, Central and Northern California are nice people. I like it. Southern California, L.A., you name it, is just a cesspit. And I'm honest about that. I know we got an affiliate that goes into L.A. I'm just not going to lie to you. And Santa Barbara, you name it, what a mess. And then we're to blame. All males are to blame, not just gun owners. Males are to blame. That some sick freak did this. This is the collectivism. This is the political correct tyranny that I'm going to talk about when we come back. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com. Stay with us. And my voice is so shot, people would kill for a voice that sounds like this. And I would kill to not have my voice be like this. It gets a little old when a waiter comes over and you sound like a cross between Darth Vader and Clint Eastwood when you're ordering a drink or something. I got to go get my larynx looked at. Okay, there is so much to go over here, ladies and gentlemen. Elliot Rodger had a autism spectrum disorder. And if you know folks that have Asperger's, it's real. They're like robots. They're highly intelligent, but they are like robots, at least part of their personality. And when they shift into the robot phase, it's like you're not even talking to a person. And a lot of the shooters are Asperger's with shoot-'em-up games, which is now coming out. This guy was a video game head. They're trying to cover up which ones because it's a $30, $40 billion a year industry and growing, just the shoot-'em-up games. Getting bigger than Hollywood itself, by the way. Under psychiatric care since age 8, quote, being given treatment. And again, the treatment for Asperger's is psychotropics, antipsychotics, the same type of drugs that they give people for things like what they call bipolar. See, so much of the public is acting like schizophrenics now and have personality disorders and borderline personality disorder, which you can give them labels. They're real. But more and more of the public is completely out of their mind. And that's done because the brain has been rewired from birth, sitting in front of a television. That's on record. The wireless pollution, the chemicals, the biologicals, the GMOs that cause all sorts of mental illness and genetic mutations in the brain of lab animals. This is all happening with us. It's not just pediatric cancers up 10,000%. It's not just diabetes up type 2, 3,000%. In Hispanics, it's more than that. They estimate by 2025, half the U.S. will have diabetes, type 1 or 2. By 2025, that's only like 10 years away now, 11 years away. And that something like 75% or 80% of Hispanics will have it. And no one asks, why is this happening to Hispanics? Well, if you're Hispanic and have a lot of native blood, indigenous blood, those populations didn't eat sugar, folks, in high amounts, processed sugar, and they certainly didn't drink processed alcohol. And that's why it's a genetic fact. They would call me being discriminatory to state a fact that Indians, as they were known, back when folks thought this was India, 550-something years ago when they discovered the, quote, New World, that if you sold some whiskey to the Indians, a bunch of them would end up drinking themselves to death. Europeans, thousands of years of saving the grain they produced as alcohol through the winter, a completely alcoholic society. And all the studies are there that Europeans can drink more than anybody else. They got livers that can handle it because everybody died who couldn't. Just like Europeans can handle smallpox, because smallpox has been in the old world for at least 10,000 years. They can dig up the bodies and see it. It was never here until Christopher Columbus showed up 500 plus years ago. See, I'm not supposed to even have a scientific discussion here of fact and tell Hispanics how to not get their legs sawed off. I drive by the bus stops Every day, every day. Like, I want to do a report on this and blow their faces, and I see the Hispanics with their legs chopped off, young and old. It's a genocide. And I want to go warn them, but the Southern Poverty Law Center, CNN, would say I was racist. If I warned them that, hey, you can't drink alcohol and you can't drink aspartame, that's wood alcohol, it will kill you. And you certainly can't eat processed foods. It will hit you a lot harder. Europeans have had a much more horrible diet for a long time than pretty much anybody else. Europeans come from the Ice Age, ladies and gentlemen, and a totally different developmental cycle. But the BBC says, I can't even say the word girl or I will be arrested. And people won't believe that. Guys, type in BBC presenter arrested for using the word homosexual. I had Robin Page on 10 years ago when this happened, and then he got so threatened by police when he came on, he wouldn't come back on. Robin Page was at a rural affairs meeting, and he said, we deserve the same rights as rural communities as homosexuals and Muslims. And he was arrested and basically lost his job. One man and his dog. He would walk from pub to pub drinking beer and talking about cool rural areas all over the Britannic Isles. Well, the reason I mention that, and it's all going to tie together, is that political correctness now means you don't communicate on anything. You only repeat the provided message of the establishment. You only say what they say, and then you're politically safe, and you'll be secure in the fold with the niche you've been put in. This is called cult programming. And here is a great example today. Now, remember, 2 weeks ago, they said that you can't have fiesta parties at universities nationwide. If one person complains, they're banned. Well, if somebody complained about the Klan on campus, they shouldn't be able to stop them. Because, not that we like the Klan, but because we don't want to lose our rights, correct? Free expression, as real liberals. More freedom, not less. Because it's hurtful if somebody has a fiesta party. By the way, I was invited a few weeks ago to a pool party at a big condo. And guess what, folks? We happen to have a fiesta party with chicken and fajitas cooked on the grill. And people are drinking tequila margaritas. Do you know who was out there at the same pool party? There were middle-class Mexicans, because a ton of those folks that moved up here because Mexico's so dangerous, they were all wearing little sombreros on their heads instead of a little party. And they were having a fiesta party, too, because they were racist.
So you were basically at a Klan rally?
Well, I mean, we had the same idea to eat fajitas, and people were having margaritas because we were racist. It's not that we like the food or the that culture, but these Mexicans, because we ended up partying with them some, they spoke pretty good English. These guys and their senoritas, and we were all all of us kind of had a party, and it was because we were racist. Killing 1 million Iraqis isn't racist in the Iraq War. Putting cancer viruses in vaccines, shooting black people up with syphilis, that's not racist. Aborting 52% of blacks in this country before they're born, that's not racist. What's racist is, or sexist, is if somebody on a bunch of drugs and psychiatric care who's mentally ill goes out and shoots people because he was obsessed with girls, classic Asperger's, be obsessed with something, and then throw a fit if they can't control it. It's our fault, not just if you're white, if you're black, Hispanic, Asian. John, it's your fault. So do you want to take blame right now for the killings in California, John Brown?
I might as well. I was at a pool party myself a couple of weeks ago, and there was a guy with a sombrero on, and the guy next to him said, "You better take that off."
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yep. It's rampant. The conditioning is rampant.
Well, I want you to apologize right now because you're a male and you're white, doubly. Do you want to apologize for the deaths in California?
I just want to apologize for California for being so plastic.
But, I mean, think about the mind control. This is done on purpose. This isn't political correctness out of control. Here's the headline. BBC mauled for ruling girl is offensive word. Member of Parliament leads growing outcry as political correct censorship expands. BBC cut the G word from a repeat of the Commonwealth Games documentary because the guy goes, oh my gosh, I got beat by a girl. Everything is offensive. Fiesta parties. Government-run colleges say you will not be a geisha girl. You will not be a cowboy. No stereotypes. You will not be an Indian. You will be nothing. See, this is about them having the authority over everything. And now in Europe passing laws where you're arrested if you use the word girl or homosexual. There's no law saying those are illegal words, but they put spies in London restaurants and in Sheffield restaurants. It's in the news. Look it up. Spying to hear if someone says a word that's wrong, and they arrest you. This is just training you that you're disappeared. You want to put 20% of children under the age of 17 down to age 2 on antipsychotics, psychotropics, and speed that brain damages them? That's fine. You want to engage in every obscenity out there and have breast cancer exploding everywhere with glyphosates in the entire water supply that literally on record they admit grows the tumor. There's no discussion of getting glyphosates out. It's just fine to cure. Not why are our women all dying? No, just see, because, well, you know, we'll have a race. We'll give some money to the cancer institutes and groups that are openly covering up the fact this is an engineered program. And we'll all just go along with the social engineering and feel good about ourselves. And again, they've said, how dare anyone own guns? They've had fathers come out repeating what the media is saying, the talking point of how dare you gun owners, you craven cowards. You caused all the death. You did it, the NRA, and you gun owners. When is this going to stop? We cannot have one more person die. Close quote. Remember the father said that Sunday. And I feel sorry for him. But you know what? I didn't have anything to do with your son's death. And my guns protect me and my family, just like cars kill hundreds of thousands. I mean, we can't have one more death on the highways. It's so terrible. You craven car owners, we must ban them now. Not one more automobile death on the highways. I mean, it's obscene to blame gun owners for this. I'll tell you who it's not obscene to blame. It says on the inserts of the psychotropics and the amphetamine drugs they're giving our kids that it can make you go totally insane, have megalomania, murder people, you name it. And it's the California sick plastic culture and the pharmacological psychiatric system that kills your son more than anything. But at the end of the day, he was killed by a plastic, mentally ill monster, Mr. Martinez, not by Alex Jones. And again, at a very core level, I find it very offensive that this meme is being put out everywhere. That when something happens, it's our fault. And we've gotten to the point where you can't say the word girl. And whatever happens in England ends up happening here. And people say, it's asinine to say you can't dress up like a cowboy at the party, because that's against rural workers. Or it's asinine to say you can't dress up like a pirate or a geisha girl. Of course, dressing up like a geisha girl isn't putting down Japanese. It's the fun of the party. How are you going to dress? Everyone knows that instinctively. So you say, oh, that's crazy. No, it's not crazy. It's authoritarianism. It's a cult takeover. I want to play a clip of who killed the people. The wind-up toy monster created by this sick, unhealthy, unnatural, modern pharmakia society. If you want to know where the blame lies, it lies with the Hollywood director parents and the system that gave them the fake moral authority to institutionalize their son from age 8 so that he was completely screwed up. And then the modern corrupt Hollywood culture behind it of death and people like Bill Maher saying, I want more death, more killings, more suicide. All these so-called liberals love death. All they talk about is death because they're a bunch of spoiled sicko brats at the end of a decadent cycle before our society collapses. Let's play this clip.
Well, now I will be a god compared to you. You will all be animals. You are animals, and I will slaughter you like animals. I'll be a god, exacting my retribution on all those who deserve it. And you do deserve it.
Notice that he's a god because he's going to have a gun, and he's going to go into a victim disarmament zone in California with a bunch of trendies who would never have a gun, and he's going to kill them because they're animals because they can't defend themselves. He's a god with that gun. Well, I'm not a god, I'm just a man, but I need guns to protect myself from out-of-control government, out-of-control institutions. Now, one of the TV end producers here, graphics guys, Joe Jennings, who works here in the office, does a great job the last 4 or 5 months, one of our new hires, he heard me talking about what Luvox and Ritalin and Adderall, you know, both the Prozac-type drugs and the speeds do to kids. And he was just describing during the earlier break what it did to him. So I thought we'd let him give you some of his testimony since he was had the courage to come on air. Joe Jennings, fellow info warrior, just briefly tell folks your experience with these drugs.
Well, I was diagnosed with ADHD at a young age in California. And, you know, I was just a very vibrant child.
Most mammals are. Most juvenile mammals jump around and do yeah, that's what they're supposed to do.
I was loud. I was being a kid. So they prescribed Ritalin for me to help me focus in school and focus on my mental stability.
Because it will burn you out after about a month.
Yeah, as soon as they put it on, they put me on Ritalin. As soon as they put it on it, my teachers in class call my parents up and go, "There's something wrong with your child now." Before he was vibrant and social and on. Now he's like a zombie who doesn't do anything. He just sits there in his own world. And my parents went, wait, there's something wrong with this. So
that's because they were extremists.
Yeah.
Why didn't they trust the state? I mean, that's what Obama and Kerry, they all just say, keep the faith. They even use that term. Why don't you want to worship the state, brother?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just...
do you want to say it's your fault that people died in California? Are you a gun owner?
You know, I'm not a gun owner, but, you know, it probably was my fault because I let people get put on these Ritalin drugs and stuff like that. You know,
I guess in a way we are all guilty for this society.
We're okaying this. We're okaying numbing our children and completely taking their identity.
So what happened? Did you get off of it?
No, they prescribed me Dexedrine to bring me back up. So they put me on Ritalin, and then they put me on Dexedrine as a combo to level me out.
How was that?
Horrible. You know, I was still numb. It's just I had energy now. So after a while, we just completely...
Do you know what speed does of all types to fast-growing brain cells?
No, I don't.
It's not good. You know, they used to spray paint in the 60s and 70s, speed kills on the highway.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, it was horrible. As a child, you know, I got put into counselors and all kinds of stuff. Oh, there's something wrong with him. There's something wrong with him. And, oh, well, let's just give him more medication. Let's just do that.
That's the plan. That's the system. And it's destroying our whole society. Will we turn back? No, because it's racist. We must do what the government says or we're racist. We know the system's killing us. I talk to people in the system, social workers, cops, you name it. They know it's bad. This is a military operation, a globalist mind control operation against the population. They now admit that. They say the CIA domestically engages in psyops through the news against the American people. They've been doing it since the 40s, but now they legalized it this year. It had been illegal before. They said, oh, it's legal now to lie to you and run psyops against you. And the goal is to get the public on drugs, illegal and legal. And the big banks launder the money. Joe, how did it all end when they put you on multiple drugs when you were a child?
Well, finally, after, you know, years, I just couldn't, you know, my parents couldn't justify doing this to their child.
So they remembered that you were better before they put you into the soft kill grid?
Yes. And they said, you know, but...
You were all queued up to be completely destroyed, though.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they'd have you at your age today on 15 drugs.
Oh, yeah. They would have tried it all. I mean, Zolofts, they would have whatever, just to alter my mood because I was too energetic. I was too
racist.
Maybe I was.
Thought crime.
Yeah. I always questioned when I went to church. I always questioned.
Oh, just please don't do that. Now that's illegal. So how did it all end?
They finally took me off of them, and I just, as I started becoming older, I didn't need it anymore. My thought patterns were leveled out, I guess.
Well, that's why they want to get you when you're young, so they can screw you up as early as possible. But see, you were able, because of high intelligence, to get over it. Most people they do that to end up being institutionalized. And I saw a statistic a few years ago. You're 4 times more likely. The feds even admit this. People can pull this up. I don't remember the exact study, but there's been multiple studies that when you've been put on psychotropics or Luvox or the Adderall and stuff, you're 4 times more likely to end up on illegal drugs. It totally primes you to want pharmakia.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, what do drug dealers do? They start kids young.
Yeah. I mean, in the high school, what most high school students would do back then.
Well, there's a huge black market now and people grinding up their Adderall and their Ritalin, people snorting it.
And that's what I hear. And I go, why would you do that? Because
they also smoke the serotonin reuptake inhibitors. That's hallucinogenic.
Yeah. Well, the weird thing was, Ritalin, when people say that they snort it and do it, and Ritalin worked reversal on me. It mellowed me out to a point, which was kind of weird. That's why they gave me the Dexedrine, to bring me back up. Now, when I hear about these kids doing Ritalin, I said, well, why would you do that? You're going to go to sleep. No. It's an upper for them.
Well, I mean, it does work on some people to settle them down, but what you don't want was the red dyes, the chemicals. Just last week, another study came out that it was the fertilizers doing it on kids in the fruits and vegetables. You were aware of that.
Yeah.
But more importantly, they admit that the chemicals in the bisphenol A, was affecting reproduction and was affecting mood. They're drugging us through the packaging on purpose. That's what the White House science czar said 40 years ago.
Yeah, but they forget about, stuff that's genetic. And, my brother, his child has supposedly ADHD, and he wants to put her on Adderall. And I said, no, do not do that. There's nothing wrong with her.
Did he get her off of it?
Yes. He finally got her.
We sacrifice our children on the altar of these screwed up schools. I'd rather my kid be an artist and not make any money and just be happy than be screwed up on a bunch of drugs. Joe, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate you telling the story. You turned into a great guy, so I'm glad you got off of it. We all went through stuff when we were a kid, and you can always reverse it, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not too far down the line. Briefly, speaking of health, Survival Shield Nation Iodine is totally proprietary. It's how we fund our operation as well, InfoWarsLife.com. Look at this article from Newsmax, quoting a bunch of scientific studies. Here's the headline. Pregnant women should take iodine supplement, documents show. Massive increases in birth defects and problems because people are not getting iodine in North America. We have the best, InfoWarsLife.com. Life-changing for me. Weight loss, my glands, you name it, life-changing what it's done. We've got it discounted right now, Survival Shield Nation Iodine, InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. Shop with the good guys. Fund the tip of the spear in the Info War. Thank you for your support.
Visit
Second hour, tons of news. Your call's coming up. Stay with us. Get ready. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we covered a ton of news and basic cultural analysis in the last hour. I'd like to get your take on the issues I raised. Political correctness being total mind control in the globalist own words. The shooting rampage over the weekend, last Friday, broke big Saturday, that they are using to now demonize gun owners collectively. Half the people he killed were killed with a knife. We need to get that news out to folks. Also, this is really a scary article I want to cover after we take some calls. Government plan would transform Israel to the world's first cashless society. Man, that's bad. And we'll also get into Bitcoin is on a major tear upwards. We're going to break down Swiss Group to allow assisted dying for elderly who are not terminally ill. I want to get into the First Lady set to respond to school meal critics. I mean, that right there is such a bizarro headline. Why is the First Lady over what we eat? I mean, imagine if we said, in North Korea, Kim Jong-un decides what the kids eat. You'd go, that dirty dictator. But here it's like, oh my gosh, she's our mummy. It's good to have women tell you what to do. That's very feminist. She's a total front, folks. She doesn't come up with what the kids are fed. They have actuaries by the big agri companies to gobble up the market. Bill and Melinda Gates are involved to feed kids the worst crap, GMO, worse than prison food. And then it's like, but it's a black lady promoting it. You're not racist, are you? They have disinfo articles about, under her plan, kids would have salad bars. They always had salad bars. Now they've gotten rid of them. I know. My kids were in private school 3 years ago. Half the week, like 3 days a week. One of those staggered homeschool private schools, a nice Christian private school, a big one. But they said we're accredited, so you know, these handouts would come home and these CDs from the federal department about, you know, with her telling you, you know, this is what you're supposed to eat. And it was like white bread and Lunchables and like GMO crap. I mean, we've all seen the photos online on Twitter of the young people fighting back and showing everybody what the school food looks like. And it looks worse than the stuff you've seen in PBS documentaries inside prisons. I remember when I went to public school, you could eat healthy if you wanted to, but they had chicken fried steaks, they had salads, they had everything. It was pretty good food. In fact, my mouth just started watering thinking back to the school food we had when I was in Dallas. And by the time I moved my last few years to Austin, the school food wasn't very good. And then now I see what it's like. And I've seen the school food. I've been in some schools. And I mean, it is literally beyond prison food. A hamburger is like some weird, stale, fake bread buns with like a rotten tomato and a weird dehydrated pickle on it. And, I mean, it's just beyond gross, ladies and gentlemen. And it always tastes weird. They found some of the photos. That's nothing. I remember the Blaze had them a few months ago. It was like, school lunch program, would you eat this? Or worse than prisons. Yeah, there it is. I mean, imagine eating food that looks like that. It's beyond prison. And I've been in jail, I don't know, 4 or 5 times protesting and a couple times fighting. Yeah, never any convictions. But the cops show up and everybody's bloody. You know, everybody just goes to jail. And they let the courts sort it out. And, I mean, I remember being in juvenile detention, I don't know, 3 times or so. And I remember the food was better than that right there. I remember being in Rockwall, Dallas, and Terrell detention. And the food was better than what they serve kids in school right now. In fact, a couple times I was in jail, they would just bring you fast food, which wasn't good for you. But, I mean, you compare it to these school lunches. I mean, it looks like something out of a goulash. But why not? Parents will put up with it. The sky is the limit, huh?
Drought concerns. They're very real in the American Southwest. And here in the state of Texas, many Texas cities and communities have less than 90 days of water in their reserve. And that's not even counting the water gouging that would surely take place during some type of crisis. Now, there are reasonable water rationing measures in effect, such as using gray water from your sink or your bathtub that you store in a tank to water your grass at a later date. And that sounds perfectly fine. But there are more extreme measures not only being proposed, but also active in at least one Texas city. So in the name of sustainability, would you drink water that was once in your toilet? Can I ask you, what measures do you take to keep yourself hydrated?
What measures?
Yes.
I drink a full glass of water every morning, a full glass of water before exercising, a full glass of water before bed, and water in between.
I stop at most of the water fountains on the trail.
Do you guys stop at the water fountain so you're drinking city water?
Yes.
And what type of water? Do you drink city water or some other type?
City water.
City water?
Uh-huh.
Okay, did you know that the city of Austin is considering making toilet water drinking water?
That's disgusting.
It's disgusting?
That's disgusting.
Would you drink the toilet water?
No.
A city out in West Texas doing
I think it's Big Spring, Texas.
Yeah, I've heard of them doing it. I thought they were crazy for it.
Do you let your dog drink out of the toilet?
No.
No? Okay, would you drink out of the toilet?
What do you think?
We're all going to have to answer that question soon, I guess, right?
Right. Oh, so you've heard about this.
Oh, yeah.
You drink a lot of water. So, you know, you want to stay hydrated, you want to stay healthy, especially as it gets hotter here in the state of Texas. So drinking your water morning, noon, and night, would you drink the toilet water?
I would not.
Could it ever be clean enough for you to drink it?
They would have to prove that it's clean enough.
Would you consider drinking the water if you knew it was no?
No, not if I knew toilet water was in it.
Miss?
I'd want to hear more about it.
How clean is clean? How clean would it have to be?
It would have to be as clean as the water we drink now, and some people think our tap water's not clean enough now.
They'd be fine if I knew it was okay to drink. Maybe.
How would you know? How clean is clean? How clean would it have to be?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Now, this is a last-ditch effort. It's nothing that they so much want to do, but they're thinking that if the drought continues, it may get to the point where they have to drink the toilet water. So could the water ever be clean enough?
I don't think so.
Why do we need to resort to that?
Well, we have water rationing in effect. You know, there's a drought going on. And
I know that.
yeah. But so you're saying it can never get to the point where you'd want to drink toilet water?
It depends on the scientific process of what's used to purify it, you know.
And I'll also tell you that here in the city of Austin, they fluoridate the water, and there have been Harvard studies about fluoride reducing people's IQs.
I think I'm pretty smart still.
Fluoride in the water, and the mayor of Austin, you know, gives you the finger if you come in there and talk about it.
Oh, well, I try to talk to my family about it, and they just think I'm crazy.
Yeah. Harvard studies about fluoride reducing IQ levels.
Well, I guess that explains a lot.
All right, thank you. Enjoy your workout, miss.
Thanks, bye.
The city of Big Spring, Texas is already taking water from the toilet to the tap. And through a multi-stage cleaning process, a representative for the Texas Water Development Board says it tastes just as good as any bottled water.
It tasted not unlike any other drinking water, whether it's from the tap here in the city of Austin or bottled of Ozarka water. And yes, I'd recommend it. I recommend any water supply that is readily available and reliable and safe.
So while the final decision concerning the toilet water may be a ways off, the city of Austin can improve health immediately by simply removing fluoride from the water. You can find more reports at Infowars.com.
Yeah, that may work for little creatures like my dog, but I'm not going to eat.
Texas town closed to toilet to tap loop. Is this our future water supply? And they go on to say that Austin has been doing such a good job saving water that we're now going to get toilet water recycled. And again, it's good to save water and not waste it. But they just want you to not waste it to double, triple charge you. I wanted to intro the second hour with that Jakari Jackson piece. That's the type of reports you see every night, 7 o'clock Central with InfoWars Nightly News, with stories that affect not just the U.S. or Texas, but the entire world. They want to put you in a 200-square-foot apartment and charge you as much as a 2,000-square-foot apartment. They want to put you in a tiny car and charge you $10 a gallon for gas, or the equivalent for coal power that's transferred into electricity. That's the model of Agenda 21, is artificial scarcity, and people better understand that, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we are joined with a quick update by Paul Joseph Watson from Copenhagen, Denmark. Here in just a moment, we're going to go to him. And then I'm going to give the phone number out on a host of issues and cover some other news here in just a moment. So be ready for that. First off, Bilderberg 2014 is more important than ever. Last week, Paul Watson, from our sources, but also from public statements in Der Spiegel, by one of the Bilderberg Group members, admitting that they basically run the planet, that they are establishing a planetary regime, that they're more powerful than Davos. Davos is kind of one of their public events. That's why Prime Minister of England went there last year while I was covering it, while I was being detained by police for trying to rent a boat to go down the canal to get a shot of him there. We forced them to admit that he was an attendee and that he violated different federal laws in England, that you cannot have the Prime Minister meeting secretly at a lobbyist meeting. That's what this is. But they didn't want you to ever know it existed. I remember 10 years ago, they would have the New York Times literally say that we were insane, no such group existed. In fact, forget that. In 2009, the New York Times reviewed a film called The New World Order that aired on the independent film channel that I was in. And they literally said Mr. Jones had a full-on schizophrenic break, total break with reality, and was in the woods in Virginia imagining sedans and men in black glasses and a secret meeting. And they said there was no meeting. And we had footage of Marines. We had footage of helicopters, Secret Service. Turned out Hillary and Obama were in the meeting years later. That was their secret meeting when no one could find Obama for a day. It was there. It happened. We caught world leaders with their national anthems playing, and they just came out in the New York Times and said it didn't exist. Just like they say, if you have a business, you didn't build that. Just like they say that raising the debt limit doesn't raise the debt limit. Just like they say there is no $5,000 fine starting this year for people that don't get Obamacare. It's in the stinking bill. Everyone will be affected next year. They just say there is no fee. There are no death panels. You will keep your doctor. It will lower your bill to the price of a phone bill or a cable bill. I guess if you've got 10 different cable packages, maybe. Maybe you own a small hotel and pay for 10 packages, maybe, yeah. But not one. It's doubling prices conservatively. This is what we deal with. Well, guess what? Now, thanks to Infowars.com, WorldNetDaily.com, DrudgeReport.com, the Epoch Times, they helped break it as well in the last decade, American Free Press and others. Because of that fact, they now have to admit it exists. But they go, it's no big deal. Yeah, it's world leaders meeting in secret, royalty, bankers, head of Google. But don't worry about it. It's kooky to even care. Let me tell you what happened last year in England. You've seen the video. About 3,000 people showed up to hear me speak on the green there. The police told us they were listeners and didn't like Bilderberg. And we're not lying. And rolled the red carpet out for us. In most cases. There were a few that were jerks, low-level ones. But I've never been treated so well by police. And they gave us intel. Well, regional police came and met with us and were nice, and then local police were nice. I ran into some guys from MI5, gave us really good intel. And they just said point blank, no, we know this is horrible for our country. We know it's bad, yeah. We're allowed to have opinions as citizens. Yeah, it's terrible. It's illegal, we believe. People don't want to be slaves, folks. And you got a working class attitude in England where people still understand, especially those that aren't dumb, that having a bunch of insiders meet is bad for everybody and set agendas in secret. And it's illegal. So we've come a long way. I'm going to skip this network break so we can talk to Paul Watson, give the number out and take your calls. But Bilderberg 2014 is a big deal because we just got the internal list. It's going up right now at Infowars.com. Then we're going to add photos, documents, and intel to the bottom of it. But we have the 2014 list. It's going up at Infowars.com in mere minutes. In mere minutes. Joining us from Copenhagen tomorrow, he'll be on with us via video Skype 30 minutes into the show. And if there's any big events or any attempts to stop our reporters, he'll be doing live feeds as well on Ustream and other systems. Paul, give us an update since you got there yesterday. Were you able to get into the hotel, or are you banned, as I was in England and as you were in England? Give us the data dump. Paul Watson reporting for Infowars.com.
Hi, Alex. Good to be back. Yeah, I've actually checked into the Marriott right now, and they've blocked off the second floor of the hotel. There's a rope around the stairs in the lobby, and if you take the elevator up to the second floor, you're quickly escorted back into the elevator. So they've let us in this time, which differs obviously from last year where we were kicked out 3 days beforehand. We were told that we were a security threat at Watford last year at the Grove. This year, they've let us check in, but preparations are already very visibly taking place for Bilderberg 2014. The security is extremely paranoid for as much as half a mile surrounding the entire hotel. But we've checked into the Marriott. We're here reporting from the scene.
It's now gone up on Infowars.com. We have the official 2014 list that went up literally minutes ago on the official Bilderberg Meetings website, which, again, they didn't have till 6 years ago. Under massive pressure, they have been forced to let some of this out. Official Bilderberg 2014 membership list released. Official list on this year's Bilderberg attendees has now been released. The key, and we're going to add this note at the bottom of their official list and point out that this is their official list, and then have a link saying here's where it comes from. And then under that, we're going to have a note so people understand this is world leaders meeting in secret. They tried to deny this existed in the past. We have forced in previous years to have them admit it is real. And then we have your latest article reposted under it, Paul, and we're going to make note of that, that you have been able from your sources to find out what they're really concerned with this year and what is going to be on their agenda and what the main focus is. But Paul, obviously shoot video of them throwing you off the elevator. I'd come out with your iPhone rolling and put that on YouTube. How is Ustream working? Give us a little preview of what you're going to be able to do inside the hotel.
Well, the fact that they've let us in is a big surprise because as far as half a mile away, right across the water, the police are going around to the local ice cream sellers and telling them to watch out for suspicious people walking next to the water. So they've done it a little bit differently. At least they're letting us in. But you can tell that, you know, compared to Watford last year, the security setup is very more paranoid. But we're inside the hotel. They've roped off the second floor. The organisers for the actual conference are already here.
Yeah, let's be clear. Used to, they threw you out Thursday morning. They started arriving Thursday evening. Now, when I get there, even 3 days before, they're just, Alex Jones, you're not allowed here. The police are there. They throw us out. They go to the local hotel where we're staying, say, don't give this guy service. We caught that on tape in Virginia last year. Just 2 years ago was in Virginia. Last year was England. Unprecedented how the police behaved in Virginia. Very un-American, very North Korean. So to be clear, you haven't been thrown out yet. They may have missed your name. I think you should be ready for that, Paul.
I'm surprised because outside, you know, at the entrance to the hotel, there were tourists with cameras who weren't even taking pictures. They just had, you know, Canon cameras slung around their backs, and security people were walking up to them and being very domineering and saying, you're not allowed to take pictures.
Well, Watson, let's just say it. You're like 6'3", and you look extremely aristocratic. So, I mean, you look like a model in person. So that's why you're being left alone.
In Denmark.
No, I know. That's why you're being left alone. I know. Exactly. That's what's going on.
No, but, yeah, I mean, they're walking up to people who aren't even taking pictures and harassing them. And even right across the water, they're talking to the local tradesmen and the people who own the boats that sail right by the hotel and trying to intimidate them out of, you know, taking protesters on board. There's still a chance that we might be able to do that, but we'll wait and see.
Okay, so they are talking to people saying don't give boat rides on the nearby water. Describe the water that's around the hotel. And we'll put it on Google Maps, guys. All week we're going to have Google Maps of the Marriott there, and we're going to be showing that. And McBrain's putting together a data package of all that I was requesting last week. Go ahead.
Yeah, basically, obviously one side of the Marriott faces out onto the water streaming through, and the other side, you know, faces out onto the industrial sector and the rest of the city. There's a bridge that connects the Marriott, and there are people with microphones patrolling that bridge on a regular basis. I saw that from the hotel room a little bit earlier. They actually upgraded my hotel room to a waterfront view, so that was nice.
Well, Watson, I want you to get on that boat.
Very paranoid.
I want you to get on those boats and get footage from the water of the facility. Are they putting up a fence, a makeshift riot fence, like they did in Watford last year in England?
They're doing that tomorrow, I've been told. The space that the police have afforded us is very near the hotel compared to last year. It's literally across the road. The fences that are in place now are there permanently, so you can see through them. That's no big deal. But they're going to put bollards up. They're going to erect a fence tomorrow, I've been told, immediately in front of that parking lot area, which is being afforded to the protesters. And then there are separate areas nearer the hotel that have been given to us. So, and I'm here with Charlie Skelton and Hannah, who can talk to you as well about the preparations.
Now, Watson, again, we had incredible mega thunderstorms covering half the state yesterday, literally. So the flights were all canceled out of Houston to get our reporters out there to you, David Knight and Josh Owens. They'll be there tonight, late tonight. And so get ready tomorrow. They're going to be there to help you, cover the fence going up. Make contact, obviously, with the bartenders, with the workers, that when they treat you horrible, when they're bad, give them your business card so that they can contact you later with any information. What else are you planning?
Yeah, the thing about the staff is they're obviously very reluctant to tell us anything. We've already tried to talk to them, and it's basically a complete lockdown. But as I said, we're going to get nearer than we did last year. We're here until tomorrow, early afternoon, which is when we have to check out. So basically, we got the rest of today and tomorrow morning, and we're getting, closer access than we did last year. So hopefully, we're going to get more inside information compared to last year. But as I said, it's a whole lot more paranoid than it was last time around because they've allowed us in. But I'm looking at the stairs up to the second floor. They've put a red rope across it. They've blocked it off. They've got people guarding it. They've got people outside the front of the hotel harassing tourists simply for carrying cameras. They're not even taking photographs. And looking at the actual attendee list, you've got Rasmussen there from NATO. So as I said in the article earlier, they're extremely concerned about this agenda for the unipolar world falling apart, which obviously centers around Putin and Ukraine. We've had top globalists saying that Russia is basically being kicked out of the New World Order. You've got the revolution in Europe with the anti-EU parties winning the Euro elections in the UK, Denmark, and France. So this is absolutely crucial for Bilderberg. This is probably one of the most crucial meetings since the 60s or the 70s, so it's very important. And Charlie Skelton from The Guardian is here, so I can put him on if you want a quick word with him.
Absolutely. We'd love to talk to Charlie Skelton. Let's do that right now. Again, we have to give The Guardian credit. In the last 8 years or so, they've been covering it and not just making jokes about it. And Charlie's been arrested, you name it, repeatedly. But he did a great job in England last year helping organize so much of it with his wife, the actual protest. So you got to love that. Guardian writer helping organize the protest. Charlie Skelton, thank you for joining us. What's your breakdown on what you're seeing, sir?
Well, I'm staring now at the participant list, which is, it seems to be a very powerful Bilderberg this year. I mean, they're always powerful, but there seems to be a big one. The head of MI6, the head of NATO, the Supreme Allied Commander of Europe are here, and they're interestingly here with people like General Petraeus, who now works for Henry Kravis at KKR. Now, KKR is a big speculator on war. That's where they make their money. They're not the nicest people in the world. So anyway, they're going to be, I guess, discussing some of the things going on in geopolitically, and we'll be standing nearby taking photographs of them as they arrive in the limousine, or trying to.
Now, I was thrown out with Watson 2 days before it began in Watford last year. We were in the restaurant, actually, and they came in and said, get up and leave. And I just kept eating and finished my wine. But long story short, how were you guys able to get in if they're even telling tourists 300 yards outside the facility not to take photos?
Well, it's a kind of slightly fluid situation. And, we're here, we're going to go for dinner here, I hope, and just have a nice time and soak up the extremely expensive atmosphere, and then worry about the cost tomorrow. But it's still winding up, and it will wind up now for the next few days until obviously it reaches on Thursday the sort of peak of the security, and it's a big operation, and we're right. The location is just a couple of hundred yards from the main administrative centre of the Copenhagen police. So it's in some ways it's interesting. They're holding it right in the middle of a city. So good for people that want to come and say hello, take some photos, report on it. But also right next to the police station. So I think it should be it's a sunny day today. I think it should be a good Bilderberg. I mean, obviously it's missing your presence, sailing down a barge, bullhorning, which is a memory I won't forget in a hurry. But we've got Paul Joseph Watson here, so that's a good second best.
Well, you're going to kick butt. Is your wife there as well?
She is, yes, she's here.
I want to come back, Charlie, and do 2 or 3 more minutes with you to get other observations. Where's the best place for people to read your reportage? Is it at the London Guardian or your personal website?
Yes. It'll be on the Guardian, yeah.
I want to hear about when we can start seeing some reports and photos. You always take great photos. We'll be right back.
We're on the march.
The real global mafia is meeting right now in Copenhagen, Denmark. protected by the state-run media, protected by the state and taxpayers' money. And they're not being protected from physical harm. They're being protected mainly from the harm of the bright lights of publicity. And Charlie Skelton writes for The Guardian and its sister newspaper, The Observer. And his stories have been widely circulated. Probably the top coverage of the last 5, 6, 7 years of Bilderberg has been at The Guardian, much of it his. And that's a big deal. There's a reason The Guardian's #1 in Europe, not just in England, and it's because it covers globalism. It covers the New World Order. It covers real stories. It covers the NSA whistleblowers. And they've been threatening to arrest members of The Guardian. So I've got to give it credit where it's due. DrudgeReport.com has linked to the official Bilderberg 2014 attendee list that we have mirrored from their site. We're also going to add to the bottom of it. Yesterday they released the official agenda, which I can assure you will not be the real agenda being covered. Because they'll have these official meetings, and then the little breakaways is where the real criminal stuff's going on. By the way, mainstream British news last year said it was illegal. I mean, they are setting policy in secret. Going back to Charlie Skelton, I know you'll have a lot more tomorrow and throughout the weekend. We'll have live coverage again Sunday as it all ends on the Sunday broadcast as well. I may even just have David Knight and Paul Watson, if the Skype is good, host the Sunday show with myself just calling in so I don't dominate the discussion. I have to kind of exclude myself, or wild horses can't drag me away. But other points you think are important or other observations, Charlie Skelton?
Well, from the agenda, I would definitely, I mean, whether they're discussing this, they're certainly saying they're discussing the question, does privacy exist? Which, you know, for an organisation that values privacy as much as Bilderberg does, it's a curious question. But it's interesting they're discussing privacy with, you know, the head executive chairman of Google, Eric Schmidt, and the head of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman, and people like Alex Karp from Palantir Technologies. So these are kind of big players in the new media and that world. So it's, you know, in a world where, you know, we, the people, are extremely transparent. It's interesting that they would ask, does privacy exist? And, you know, it's a question everyone should actually be asking. Perhaps not in the way they're asking, because, you know, their idea of privacy and ours probably differ, and the importance of privacy probably differs. But I think that's interesting that privacy in a post-Snowden world, you know, is at the center of the Bilderberg discussion.
Well, I think you make a really good point there, that these guys are just such hypocrites on every front. Schmidt, who's a frequent attendee, the head of Google, he wants to be secret. He had YouTube takedown videos that we posted of him hiking up the mountain a few years ago in Switzerland. Then they put them back up later when there was protest. I just don't get how they want to live in one world and then we live in another. Why don't they just want everybody to be free? I just don't get how they think they're important, but we're not.
Well, I know, you end up with a slightly Hunger Games division of society, as the Bilderbergians zoom through the ghettos. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a slight, there's a double standard in at play. You know, when you're being held in a sort of police pen, pointing a zoom lens at a group of world leaders, which includes people like the head of the IMF and 2 ministers from the UK, and a shadow minister as well. So these are politicians. There's a lot of politicians here. If you look at the list, you'll see the number of elected officials, sorry, I hate that, public servants here. You know, it's staggering. And you know, where are the minutes from the meeting? You know, so there are questions like that people should be asking. You know, this is a meeting where 3-day conference. You know, Chancellor of the Exchequer, the head of the Treasury in the UK, is going to be here for 3 days. It's probably his biggest engagement of the year officially. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it is. And you know, we need, if that's happening, and if there are so many politicians, we need better coverage from the mainstream media. It's improving certainly, but we need more, and we need more transparency from the politicians who attend. You know, that seems, I think, reasonable, and that's a double standard I think we can explode within the media and generally. Hopefully, I say that. I'm an optimist.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, I remember, again, 5 years ago, they wouldn't admit that the stock markets are rigged and that the interest rates are rigged. Now even Rolling Stone admits it, and everything is rigged, the biggest price-fixing scandal ever. Look at LIBOR. Look at the big European banks, and the U.S. is doing it as well, fixing interest rates to screw the general public, where the elite get basically free interest. We have to pay interest, even if we have good credit. Rigging things is a big deal, and we're there showing where it's being rigged, and it's just simply amazing that we have forced the bigger establishment-aligned media to cover this, because believe me, folks, a decade ago, if mainstream media covered Bilderberg, you would lose your job. Charlie Skelton, thank you so much for the time, and you can hand that back over to Paul Watson, and I can't wait to see your reporting at the London Guardian.
Excellent. Here's Paul.
All right, final comments from Paul Watson, and then I'm going to go to your phone calls and cover Second Amendment news, economic news, the First Lady controlling what's on our school lunch menu news. She's going to respond to critics now. How dare you want to be able to have your kid eat what you want? Why, under their rules in Chicago schools, you're not allowed to pack lunch. She decides, and it's going to go nationwide now. That's like North Korea, again, where Kim Jong-un decides what people eat. I mean, I just can't handle it, folks. This is authoritarianism, and we're going to expose who pulls the strings on Michelle Obama, and who pulls the strings on David Cameron, and who pulls the strings on Angela Merkel. Paul Watson, any other comments that you think are important?
I would emphasize that we need to post the agenda, which is also on the Bilderberg Meetings website, as well as the list, because they've announced the agenda. And aside from some very interesting other discussion topics, listed are Ukraine and the future of Europe, what's next for Europe, which obviously in the article I posted earlier today, Ukraine and Europe were the main focus. Obviously you have Mr. Messerschmidt, Morten Messerschmidt, who won the Euro elections in Denmark. You have Nigel Farage for UKIP in the United Kingdom, and you have Marine Le Pen in France. So there's this kind of far right, the media calls it, revolution.
It's really libertarian Tea Party. We know Penn, we know Farage, we know them all. They're all Ron Paul fans. Le Pen was good buddies with Bob Chapman on record. These are libertarian listeners of this show who have common sense. Look at the Tea Party sweeping in primaries all over the U.S. The globalists are concerned, and they were concerned in 2006 about the, quote, liberty movement and Ron Paul. We got that directly from Bilderberg in 2006. And Estulin's source, I happen to know who it is. I'm going to leave it at that. I'll just say it's a major banker. I mean, the system knows who it is. But the point is, said they're going to implode the housing market to bankrupt the American people in 2008. We reported that 2 years before on video with Estulin in a bar 2 miles from the Bilderberg meeting. His sources are real. He's coming up in the next hour. So how big a deal is that?
I mean, it's a massive deal. Obviously, you mentioned the German magazine article a week ago saying that Bilderberg is more powerful than Davos. You have NATO Secretary General Willy Klaas from Belgium in 2010 saying that Bilderberg members are mandated to implement, the decisions in their relative spheres of influence. Then we have this topic on the agenda, which is who will pay for the demographics. Now, to me, that appears as if it's not a monetary sense who will pay for the demographics. It's the cultural and a social identity. That's the price that people are going to pay. Obviously, this conservative revolution is based on anti-immigration policies throughout Europe. People are really getting behind that in Europe. So
because they're bringing in giant masses of people, giving them free welfare, making them the new social workers, and the government is literally overthrowing all existing liberty with the giant third world desperate populations, who we have nothing against, but literally this is an overwrite and an extermination of Western culture.
No, and we talked to Danes earlier, and they were very clear that mass immigration was a problem, but that it was, it was not the immigrants' fault. It was being pushed from above. So then you also have discussions about China's increasing power, Ukraine, what's next for Europe, and talk of demographics and immigration. So the three core issues that we identified this morning in the report on Infowars.com are being discussed at Bilderberg. Ukraine, obviously, with Putin, top saying that Russia is now officially being kicked out of the New World Order. Of course, it was kicked out of the G8, which has now become the G7. So you can go down the line. They've got intelligence officials here from Britain, several other people. They're talking about how special is the relationship in intelligence sharing. They're saying, does privacy exist? That's one of the other topics for discussion. So this is absolutely crucial, 2014, the convergence of global geopolitical economic development and this key meeting, which, as we said, is more powerful than Davos. That's not us saying that, that's Bilderberg members saying that. So this is really a crucial fissure in the setup, the march towards world government. It's in very severe danger of collapse, which has been illustrated by the Euro election results.
And notice their website looks like the State Department website. That's because if you look at 1954, with the former Nazis and others in the West, you had British intelligence, the State Department, and all of them setting up the first Bilderberg. They now admit they created the secret European Union. They've created the secret American Union. We're already in this, and now they're bragging about it to major German magazines. Why do you think on one side they deny any of this is happening, but on the other side they throw it in our face they're doing it?
Because the minority of people aren't into this kind of stuff, and they don't read the news, they don't read books, they don't read anything. So on the face of it, they can, justify it by saying it's just a private gathering to the media. But as we know, when the specific topics are released and we see that they mesh with global geopolitical developments, then it brings it to light that this is the center of the New World Order engine room. This is the core of the agenda, as has been admitted by Bilderberg members.
And the question is, are we bad as journalists for wanting to see what they're talking about and what they're keeping secret? They said they didn't exist. They have a bunch of former Nazis in it and their daughters, like Queen Beatrix, the daughter of Prince Bernhard. They've been involved in all these bid rigging scams and Lockheed payoff scandals, on record. And the British media reports that having Cameron in it last year was illegal. It's important to cover this.
Well, the last time I checked, there were no mainstream reports, and we're talking about 2 days out from the meeting of 120 of the world's global power brokers. Compare that to Davos, compare that to the G8, which is a continuation of the consensus, which is set at Bilderberg, and there are no mainstream media reports whatsoever, even though we have representatives of the mainstream media attending Bilderberg. So what does that tell you? We're here, the ragtag band of independent journalists and bloggers, trying desperately to cover this in the face of official oppression, while it's being completely ignored by the mainstream. I was watching CNN earlier in the hotel, and they were still talking about the missing Malaysian plane. They were talking about supermodel goes on Instagram for the first time. Completely mindless.
Coming up, the Oscars and how to buy a sailboat, yes.
And they wonder why, for example, CNN has lost, 48% of its audience in the past 12 months. They wonder why. How can they wonder any longer when we're right here at the center of the storm? And there are no mainstream media reporters whatsoever. Obviously, there'll be a few puff pieces later in the week, as is routine, but as of now, extremely limited in terms of coverage.
Well, this happens every year now, the last 5 or 6. Drudge links to the list, starts linking to our articles, starts linking to our reports, and then it forces the media to cover it. As soon as The Guardian reports on it, obviously, then they'll also be forced to do that as well. But I really appreciate you, Watson. Stay safe. Shoot a lot of videos. Upload them to YouTube, a lot of live streams. And we'll have you via video Skype tomorrow, 30 minutes in. And then maybe you can walk around the hotel with your laptop with the live feed or via the iPhone. But the reporters should be there with you tomorrow as well. They get in early in the morning, our time, tomorrow, your time. So great job, Paul Joseph Watson, reporting from Bilderberg 2014 in Copenhagen, Denmark.
Thanks, Alex.
And Paul will obviously be filing a lot of reports as well. We've got our great team of Kurt Nemo, Kit Daniels, Don Salazar, and others here working on the InfoWars end in Austin, Texas to collate all that data. We have the news, TV news end, It'll be grabbing all the videos, live feeds, and other things, and collating that into reports for the nightly news, 7 o'clock Central, prisonplanet.tv. And let me just stop there for a moment. This is real news, where we wear our bias for freedom, our bias for truth, on our sleeve openly. Where we don't make apologies for the fact that we're free market, pro-family, pro-man, pro-woman, pro-child, pro-human. We're anti-eugenicist, we're anti-criminal, we're pro-liberty. And we are funded not by government stimulus money like NBC and MSNBC. We are not funded like NPR, as I've said 1,000 times, with $400 million or $500 million, depending on the year, of taxpayer money, and the Rockefeller Foundation. We are funded by you buying the books, the videos, the T-shirts, the high-quality supplements at InfoWarsStore.com. We try to bring in the very best products, the lowest prices, so it's a win-win-win all around. Out-of-print titles like None Dare Call a Conspiracy, right up to the latest police state book put out by WorldNet Daily. It's all available at InfoWarsStore.com. And please don't forget the cutting edge of real new media that's supplanting the dinosaur is prisonplanet.tv. $5.95 a month, 11 memberships for each membership. 11 people can simultaneously log in with the same username to the site. So make sure it's an original one that it was just to the site. Don't have it for all your other stuff. Create a new username if you need to. And then share that with friends and family so they can watch. Download the HD nightly news after it streams. It goes up in HD. Give it to friends and family. Archive it. Clip it together the way you want. Put it on local access TV. This is your media. You have full authorization to use it any way you want, as long as it's for fair use, nonprofit purposes. prisonplanet.tv. Become a member today. If you used to be a member, let it lapse. Become a member again. But I don't want you just to become a member even if you don't use it. Just to support us, because we pretty much have it at cost to fund the reporters and the TV and the operation. The goal is to get more people watching it. So share that membership or buy a membership. Create an original username and passcode, give it to friends and family. Buy somebody a one-time monthly and give it to them. This is how we reach out to more people, and this is how you help fund the literal tip of the spear in the new dominant media. Again, we have close to 20 million, I keep saying 15 million, listeners and viewers one way or another every week. I mean, we're just not arrogant on a power trip like CNN, who almost has no viewers. The only shoe to drop, the only domino to fall, is that the mainstream media is dead. I mean, Ed Schultz just quit his radio show because no one's listening. It isn't real. It's all a facade. It's a fraud. When they try to blame us for mass shootings, we have nothing to do with it, we should get angry back in their face. How dare you collectively blame me and your victim disarmament zones, but another one of your mental patients went out and killed some people. How dare you try to tell us in Denver and Chicago and now other cities under the school lunch program that parents can't be trusted to pack their children's lunches and have to eat the prison food. See, how dare them in England try to outlaw the word girl, saying that it hurts women's feelings. How are you saying the word girl is derogatory? It's meant to be, oh, okay, I'll do what you say so you don't call me racist. They've taken old evils of racism, tribalism that every group does, and turned it into everything now to keep it going. We have to reject it and stop being politically correct. BBC mauled for ruling girl is offensive and removing it from broadcast. Daily Mail. But speaking of Michelle Obama, the snapping turtle, the anti-gun, anti-family, New World Order front woman, she's the face of the federalization of school food to make sure that companies get the highest profit for the crappiest food. First Lady Michelle Obama, what are the feds doing involved in school lunches? What are the feds involved telling you what you're going to eat? See, that's how it begins with federal assistance. Then now they write the book. The same federal government that injected black people with syphilis and sprayed U.S. troops with nerve gas to kill them and the atomic soldiers. The same one that radiated over 4,000 children to death in secret trials declassified in the 80s. They now want to decide what you're going to eat. And the Pentagon in San Antonio and other cities has multi-million-dollar AI cameras that watch your children as they eat for signs that they're eating properly and aren't mentally ill. That sounds like a free society. Pentagon AI computers that calculate the calories your children eat. They brag, why, they eat half the apple. We know their calorie intake and from the apple. You think I'm joking? Just type in cameras to monitor children's eating habits in San Antonio. And then you read, oh, the Department of Defense is here in uniforms to watch our kids. It's a Twilight Zone episode. First, snapping turtle, Michelle Obama, is answering Republicans in Congress who want to roll back healthier school meal standards. See, AP says it's healthier meal. It's not that it's her running our life as the front woman. It's not that it's terrible food. It's not that GMO isn't healthier. It's not that, they're saying any fat is bad when you need fat. It's not that the diet's for a zombie or it would kill a prisoner. No. First Lady Michelle Obama is answering Republicans in Congress who want to roll back healthier school meal standards, holding an event at the White House to highlight the success of the health guidelines. Oh, it's successful. And now they're telling you they're going to decide what your kid eats at home. I've looked it up. People ate larger diets, more fattening food, dessert twice a day, chicken fried steaks, and weren't as obese or unhealthy 50 years ago as they are now. It's the GMO and the additives and what's in the environment. And they want to ask why everybody's getting so sick. People had more sugar 50 years ago than they do now. Did you know that? They're killing us, ladies and gentlemen. But don't worry, Michelle, she knows best. Totally normal to have the First Lady tell us what to eat.
GCN, the Genesis Communications.
Think how these kids are being brought up. Third hour coming up. Daniel Estulin coming up. I had meant to go to phone calls. And I just never got the number out because it clicked to me that I was going to have reporters on today from Bilderberg, but David Knight and Josh Owens couldn't fly out of Texas because literally thunderstorms. I sat there and watched thunderstorms out the window all Saturday and Sunday, all day off and on. It was just spectacular. It was like something out of a movie, giant black clouds, electricity storms, flooding rivers. And half the state had giant thunderstorms over it, so all the air traffic was canceled in Houston and a lot of other major cities like San Antonio. So they couldn't get out, flying out of, I guess, George H.W. Bush, flying over to Copenhagen. And then it clicked to me once I was on air, wait a minute, Paul Watson's there. We're supposed to get Paul Watson on today. That's been set for weeks. And so we had Paul Watson on. That's why we send reporters to foreign countries, is to cover news events. And it was clicking for me that we get so busy, myself included, just looking at all the news as it comes out, we forget we're reporters actually out there covering events as they unfold. But Daniel Estulin is going to be joining us, and he always has really powerful intel. In fact, I should have queued it up. It's in Endgame. Maybe you guys can find Endgame on YouTube. It's got like 4 million views on the one. And skip ahead about an hour into it or so where you see Estulin in a bar talking. And that's where you'll find him saying they're going to implode the housing market in 2 years and blah, blah, blah from his sources. And then it happened exactly as he said. And they're worried about the militia. They're worried about the Ron Paul Liberty Movement that became the Tea Party. The term Tea Party wasn't even out then. Wasn't being associated with Ron Paul until right around that time. And that's what they're worried about. And now look in Europe how the proto-nationalism has returning. And people are recognizing, hey, our laws are being made by unelected globalist secret bureaus. And just the realization that that's happening, you see that what's known as the Tea Party. UKIP is Tea Party aligned, Libertarian Tea Party. Same thing with the Le Pen movement. Same thing is happening in Canada, the U.S., Australia. We're trying to rediscover Western values and say no to globalist colonization, the corporate anti-free market monopoly takeover that is busy scapegoating capitalism for all the drop in productivity, the drop in standard of living. This is a designed globalization to destroy the nation states and destroy the individual and make us all dependent. I mean, look at Libya, where now NATO is in there training a new army to invade the rest of Africa in the name of fighting al-Qaeda. They put in charge. That's back in the news today. In my stack is the new Libyan army being created by NATO. They overthrew the country. They put al-Qaeda in charge. They're invading and destabilizing Africa. They want to destabilize Europe. They want to destabilize Africa. They don't want any prosperity. They want to wreck the third world, use the implosion of the third world as a tsunami of desperate people to take over the rest of the Western world. While the globalists live in cloistered, armored, rural, and city compounds exempt from what they do to us. It is a decision to work towards absolute inequity, absolute discrimination, absolute fraud, absolute hypocrisy, while having state-run media trumpet all day how much Hillary loves us when she's in the top 10th of 1%. She's not a 1%er, she's a top 10th of 1%er, who got her money off of rigged cattle deals and other scams and carbon taxes. She is a giant, disgusting, worm-like, fascist goblin parasite, not a liberal. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Stay with us. You want answers? You want to know what the tyrants are up to? Because knowing is half the battle. You want to fight tyranny? Well, so do we. Thank you so much for joining us on this live Tuesday edition. I'll keep almost saying Monday because of Memorial Day being yesterday. DanielEstulin.com is his website. Daniel Estulin is with us for the balance of the hour via video Skype from Europe. And Daniel Estulin is a best-selling author in 64 countries with a true story of the Bilderberg Group, translated into 41 languages, including #1 bestseller in Spain. And he now has written the book that we sell, Trans-Evolution, The Age of Human Deconstruction, and how the paradigm changed for humanity that shall define its future and threaten its very existence. And he joins us to give us his latest intel from his sources. And again, it's in my film Endgame that came out in 2007, a full year and a half before the October 2008 crash. It has the clip of him in it, in the bar, where we would all get together with reporters and share notes that his source, who I later learned who his source was separate from Daniel, one of his sources, in finance, I'll just leave it at that, but I'm just showing Daniel. I went and checked on his sources. We have some of our own sources as well. Tucker was a big one. He had some good sources, but those have dried up a little bit since his death last year, a few weeks before. Bilderberg's one. Remember Jim Tucker, the original Bilderberg sleuth who read Westbrook Pegler's articles in the 50s when Jim was a big sports writer and news writer nationwide. He was a big syndicated columnist, classic straw hat, whole 9 yards. And he said, there's no way a secret political group's meeting. I would have heard about it. This would be big news. And then he began to sleuth it for decades when no one even knew the name of it. But then Estulin, because he's in the continent of Europe and went to a lot of these events where they got shot at in Portugal and other cases, was really able to get some amazing sources. And so he joins us to give us the true intel agenda that he's been able to ferret out this year. The official list and what they claim their agenda is now on their website, BilderbergMeetings.org. We have links to that up at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. DrudgeReport.com is linked to that right in the middle column of Drudge. But we have a boil-down page that has both their official press release of what they say their agenda is and the official list at Infowars.com. But Daniel Estulin of DanielEstulin.com joins us. He's also the author of The Octopus Deception. Daniel, so much to cover. Where would you like to begin?
Again, it's the Bilderberg time of the year again, and I'm very happy to see that you're well and healthy and still going strong. So needless to say, thanks for the invitation. We can start, I guess, with the agenda items that have come to me through my source, as you said, about a week and a half ago. Now, I wouldn't be particularly trusty of what the Bilderbergers say their agenda items are, because a lot of the times the actual agenda list of discussion points and what has been published on our webpage is something watered down or complete fallacy, especially if dealing with some thorny issues as we are this year. So I can give you the 7 out of about 9 or 10 items they'll be discussing. Number 1, nuclear diplomacy, the coming struggle over Iran nuclear pact. This is one of the items. It's very interesting, needless to say, because Obama's or the elites, or the oligarchies, or Bilderberger's nightmare is Russia, China, and Iran working together against the will-be powers of the world. The second item I have from my sources is the consequences of Russia-China gas agreement on long-term cooperation. Needless to say, Bilderberg is going to be very, very, very angry at Obama. They're going to basically call him out and ask him what exactly he's planning to do. I mean, they've got the front door locked with allegedly with their I can't think of the word
NATO system.
Exactly, with their boycott of the Russian economy. I just can't think of the word right now. But what they've forgotten to do is the
sanctions. Sanctions.
That's right. That's right. What they forgot to do is actually get the back door locked. So the Russians and the Chinese gas agreement is, needless to say, something that especially the Europeans are very worried about. Number three is the German nationalism through a prism of European Union's political system. And that's a very, very interesting point because, again, we're dealing with the Europe's biggest nation economically, and the fact that you're dealing with nationalism itself. And again, keep in mind that this list that I'm reading off right now came to me about a week before the elections, European elections on Sunday, which showed how extreme left and right and basically nationalist parties across the continent have taken a very big chunk out of the traditional left-right divide, Hegelian dialectic, as we say, in the European Parliament. Then the fourth item is European Union's internet privacy regulations and what it means for the United States. Fifth is cyber war and peace, and again, we're seeing a lot of that, especially with the United States and China. Sixth point is from Ukraine to Syria. Is Obama's foreign policy doomed? Again, Obama is going to be in the eye of the storm in this particular meeting. Needless to say, American presidents, sitting presidents, never attend Bilderberg meetings, although two would-be presidents or soon-to-be elected presidents or presidential candidates have attended, as was the case with Bill Clinton back in 1991, who attended the Baden-Baden Conference, and he was introduced to the North American Free Trade Agreement for the first time at that meeting by David Rockefeller, and Rockefeller at the time asked him, theoretically, if you were to be elected president, Mr. Clinton, would you support NAFTA? And Clinton, who had no idea what NAFTA was, asked Rockefeller. It was important to him, and Rockefeller said, very important. And he said, of course I would, David. And so Rockefeller extended his hand, and he said, thank you, Mr. President. The rest is history, Alex. As you know, this is a story that I go in somewhat more detail in my book, The True Story of the Bilderberg Group. Then the seventh item of 9 or 10 that I have is climate change, ethical and economic challenges ahead. Again, we'll go back to the same dead old horse, climate change. And again, it's just a metaphor for reducing the world's economy, for deindustrialization, zero growth, and we're seeing the effects of that on the world stage today.
So neo-feudalism, amazing. So going over these points again, and I want listeners to understand, Estulin really does have Bilderberg sources. We've confirmed that. So this is so important what you're hearing, that weeks ago, he's now revealing that here to us exclusively. We're very thankful that obviously, who they say is on the list, there's about 20, 30 people that sneak in, presidents, prime ministers. We're going to have our reporters there documenting that. What they claim their agenda is will be a few little speeches they give to get around the fact that this is illegal in most countries to be setting policy in secret, especially in England, but also in Denmark. And then they have their real meetings that break away. And this has come out in their minutes that have come out of the National Archives from the 67 and others. So we've been able to reverse engineer a lot of this. But Estulin has multiple sources, one of which we're aware of, that is able to get the internal minutes, I guess, from their steering committees, that they have meetings 3 times a year, at least, in Europe, England, and the U.S. One meeting in the U.S., one meeting in England, one meeting in Europe. It varies sometimes, where you have the top people pretty much hammering out what the agenda is. Then it's sent to the second tier, correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, to have any changes parliamentary from what then goes on at the informal, pretty much voting that goes on. But big, nuke proliferation, China, Russia, how to use sanctions, how to block them, how to cut Russia's funding off, because they cut them off in Europe, making their money. They'll just do it with China. How does that happen? German nationalism, of the Le Pen movement, UKIP spreading, the real Tea Party movement here that the establishment's threatened by, web takeover, and laws that Europe may pass restricting illegal NSA surveillance. What will that do here? Cyber war. I guess that's how they plan to attack, claim somebody else did it, and use that as the excuse for the takeover of the web, is their cover term, cyber war. Obama being doomed. How do they flush Obama because he can't get the agenda through? He was Bilderberg darling, as we know. Climate change, their global taxes, neo-feudalism. Is that an accurate roundup of what you just said, sir?
Yes, sir, very much so. Now, as you were going through the list, I was kind of thinking to myself, what would people who are listening or who are not familiar with Bilderberg and who might be listening for the first or the second time, actually the existence of this group. Now, to most people who are not familiar with Bilderberg, this whole thing sounds crazy because, again, how do you convince people that a meeting that takes place once a year during 3 days or 3.5 days actually has such tremendous effect on world policy? And this is something, if we have a minute, I'd like to explain so that people understand that this isn't some kind of a wacky conspiracy theory, but this thing is real, and there's a way that this thing works.
Daniel, absolutely. We're going to come back. I will give you the floor in the next 6-minute segment. Then an 18-minute segment's coming up, another 6-minute, to really break this down. Folks, we're not bragging. This is major gravitas here. You're hearing what the most powerful group in the world, they don't run the world, they're trying to. They run probably half the world or more. You're hearing what's on their real agenda right now. There are major spy agencies that don't know this stuff. They're tuned in right now as well. This is hardcore info that you're getting from the highest levels. Welcome back, my friends, to our continued coverage of Bilderberg 2014. The mainstream media they own and control is dying. They won't cover it, so we do at Infowars.com. We've got Paul Watson on the ground. Our other reporters get there tomorrow. Their flights were delayed. You've got the floor to break down how big a deal Bilderberg is. You know, just last week, one of the Bilderberg group members, we covered it last hour with Paul Watson, Daniel, bragged that they indeed are the most powerful and are setting up a world government. So we've really forced them to try to hide it in plain view. Daniel Estulin.
You know, no matter, Alex, where you look, governments, big business, and any other institution seeking to exercise power, the key to control is secrecy. You know, meetings such as Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, G8, or we should say G7, Russia is no longer a member, World Trade Organization, World Economic Forum, central banks, European Union Council of Ministers, European commissioners, European Union summits, government cabinet meetings, numerous think tanks, foundations. You know, they're always conducted behind closed doors. And the only possible reason for this is that they, you know, the powerful people don't want us to know what they're discussing. Now, and of course, beyond this common reluctance to actually reveal the proceedings of meetings, the secrecy principle extends to the forums and meetings themselves. By and large, we don't even know most of these meetings take place. You know, you mentioned Jim Tucker earlier. Well, he's been doing it, you know, God bless his soul, for since the early 1970s, I believe. And before that, it was the publication he was working for before, I can't remember. Spotlight. You know, they were covering that. You know what I mean? And then I joined in 1995, and needless to say, when I found out that this organization called the Bild or something or other, you know, back in 1992, when I heard it from someone who actually had something to do with it, I laughed in his face because I thought this is impossible. Well, needless to say, it is possible because, again, by and large, we, the people, don't even know most of these meetings actually take place. You have the World Economic Forum in Davos in January, late January, February. You have the Bilderberg and G7 meetings April, May. You have the International Monetary Fund, World Bank annual conferences in September. And then you have the Trilateral Commission meetings, you know, 3 times a year. You know, one meeting in January or February takes place for the Americas. Then you have April, May, or March, April, you know, for Europe, and then September, October, you have the Trilateral Commission. Asia takes place, then you have their annual meeting. Council on Foreign Relations, they have their, you know, quarterly seminars. You know, it's a kind of invisible international consensus emerges, and it carried over from one meeting to the next, but no one is really leading, and that's something that people have to understand. You know, Bilderberg is not some kind of a wacky conspiracy. We have these, you know, 4 old geezers sitting in a dark room, you know, underground, holding hands, staring at a crystal ball, planning the world's domination, pressing buttons, and making the world go round. The world is a very complex place. No one is really leading this meeting. It works on the concept of consensus. And this consensus becomes the background, for example, for the G8 or G7 economic communiques. It becomes what, informs the International Monetary Fund when it imposes an adjustment program on countries in the third world. And it also becomes what the United States president proposes to Congress. And needless to say, it very much front and center for European elections, for the European key talking points, for the agenda items, which then, are passed on to national governments across Europe. And this is how it works. It's done through consensus. And again, you don't need to control every element of every corporation. You just need to control key levers of power, which is why the people who attend Bilderberg conferences are the movers and shakers of the world politics and economy. You have all the sitting presidents of European nations, and Canada usually attend. As I said, sitting president of the United States never comes to these meetings, but he's well represented by his minions. You have, key 50, 60 CEOs of the world's most powerful corporations from the Western world. We're talking about Amazon, we're talking about corporations such as Apple, Microsoft, GlaxoSmithKline, Beecham, from every walk of life. This IBM, needless to say, top corporate leaders are there. You're talking about key members of the world press: New York Times, Washington Post, The Economist, CNN. They're all there. Le Monde from France, a group of priests are from Spain. You have Financial Times is there. All of these individuals, they attend on the condition that what is said is not reported in the mainstream press, because they're part of this juggernaut. So you have, the key politicians, you have key ministers, key commissioners, you have the president of the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, Federal Reserve Board, you have the chairman of the European Central Bank. So amongst these people, again, no one tells anybody what to do, but the consensus reached at these meetings go a long way in defining and deciding world policy.
That's right. When we come back in the long segment, I want to break down some of the history of it and then what's going forward, how they try to plan to block nationalist movements that I know they see as the main threat with Daniel Estulin. And I'm going to add and augment what you've just said that I totally agree with, that it's a consensus synergy where you're invited because you already agree on the global governance worldview to be run by autocrats in corporations. So we're going to talk about that on the other side. There's a consensus because all they're doing is fine-tuning a program launched 100 years ago. Back in 2004, already 10 years ago, David Rockefeller wrote memoirs. And in it, he admits the whole plan for a private corporate planetary government. On page 244, we'll put the quote up on screen. He admits that there is a plan to create a world government. He also praised, when Mao Zedong died in the 70s, how wonderful Mao Zedong was in communism. Some even believe we're part of a secret cabal working against the best interest of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. The issue is they want to give us less for more, and they're exempt. The New World Order means you can't have a car or air conditioning, and they're going to suppress new technology that's clean. That's what Obama told Africans. These are horrible people that have a very anti-human mission and who openly say across the board that it's the end of humanity as we know it, and it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to merge with machines, and that's just the way it is. In fact, we sell the book that's already a bestseller, Daniel Estulin's new book that breaks all of this down, Trans-Evolution, The Age of Human Deconstruction, at InfoWarsStore.com. You should get it and support him and support us. And he uses, basically their own admissions in here to break down the plan. And this is foregone conclusion in their writings. I talk a lot about eco-science, written in '74 by the White House science czar, John P. Holdren, along with Paul R. Ehrlich. They talk about that in there, but now they're doing it. I mean, it's their world. They have steered Western genius to build the internet, but to make it all a control grid. They have woven together all the different corporate systems to build the ultimate team to bring this in so that they and their progeny gained the golden fields where mortals become immortal of Elysium. Now, again, I'm not quoting from the new movie Elysium. I'm quoting from what Elysium is in Greek culture and in Greek religion, ancient Greek religion. The globalists follow Plato. They believe that they are ascending. And I want you to talk about their real agenda, Daniel, and if you agree with what I just said. And is there any way to stop these people at this time? Because their agenda is behind schedule in some ways.
It's a very interesting point. I was listening to what you're saying, Alex. Before the break, you talked about the whole idea of countries, nation states, as opposed to this pan-global dictatorship, which is basically what they're creating. And they call it one world company limited, corporations with a lot more power than any government on the planet. And this goes back to 1968, to the Bilderberg meeting in Mont-Tremblant, Quebec, Canada, where George Ball, Undersecretary for Economic Affairs, with JFK and Lyndon Johnson, talked about this as one of the key discussion points at that conference almost 45 years ago, or more than 45 years ago. And today, that we're seeing their plans for this pan-world company limited, where corporations have a lot more power than sitting presidents or sitting prime ministers, is becoming reality. And it's a scary thing if you actually realize that they proposed this as an objective 45 years ago. Now, the whole point of national system, nation states, as opposed to the pan-world system, obviously has to do with the way they understand how money works. Now, the world today is run by monetary systems, not by national credit systems. And if you're smart, you don't want a monetary system to run the world. You want a sovereign nation state to have their own credit system, which is the system of their currency. Above all, it's the possibility of productive, non-inflationary credit created by the state, which is firmly stated in the United States Constitution, and needless to say, it was excluded by the Maastricht Treaty as a method of determining of economic and financial policy. Now, in Europe, this cannot be done because in Europe, governments are subject to control by private banking interests called independent banking systems. And these institutions have the power to regulate governments and to dictate terms to governments. And you think about, this institution within the European edifice called the European Central Bank. Well, it tries to function like European Independent Central Bank, which has no government. There's no government. There's no nation. It's a group of nations run by a private bank. And it's insanity to belong to this group, which is something that a lot of people, millions of people, tens of millions of people across Europe are beginning to realize. It is insane to belong to the European Union. It is insane to belong to anything other than nation states. This supposed independence of the central bank is the decisive control mechanism for private financial interests, which historically in Europe have been installed as an authoritative instrument against an economic policy of sovereign governments oriented towards the general welfare. And, European banking, it's a remnant of a feudal society in which private interests, as typified by the ancient Venetian cartels, I've talked about this before, Venetian black nobility of the Lombard League, which went down in the Dark Age in the 14th century. And this is something that these people have tried to resuscitate so many times over. And again, they're destroying or trying to destroy every nation state in the world, countries, and create this pan-world economic order, which they want to call World Company Limited, at the expense of nation states, at the expense of independent countries and peoples of nations.
Daniel, obviously they didn't want this exposed, and there's famous quotes, we'll put one on screen, of David Rockefeller thanking mainstream media at a Trilateral Commission meeting that's minutes were made public in 2004. We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promise of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world. See, it's their plan, and we're not in it, folks. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subject to the bright lights of publicity during those years. But the world is now much more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practice in past centuries. Trilateral Commission meeting address 1991. Again, it didn't come out till the mid-2000s. But the whole point is, these guys openly talk like this now. And my issue is, any elite that wants Common Core taught, where 2 + 2 = 5, is a very evil elite. I mean, they want us dumbed down. They want us, in a neo-feudalistic area. And people need to know this is the big threat. So let me ask you this. I want you to comment on what I just said, and if you agree or disagree. But you said in 2006, we put in a film in 2007, that they would implode in 2 years the housing market and all the rest of this, and that indeed happened. And you had that from your source. I mean, they want to hurt people. They want to make us poor. I think people need to realize that they want us poor to control us. It's neo-feudalism, correct?
Absolutely, and you know, one of the things I was jotting down as we're in the last break is something else which I know they're going to be talking about, although I don't have it as an item, discussion item on the agenda, is, you know, the derivatives bubble. The global derivatives bubble today is 20% bigger than it was just before the last financial economic crash, which we suffered in 2008. And it's important because, as you said, you know, the whole thing of deindustrialization, zero growth, demand destruction, you need to destroy demand if you want to reduce the world's population. Progress and development is directly proportional to population density. So if we have progress, we have technological development, we can have more people. You need to have progress and development, especially the technology to support, you know, the 7 billion people we have on the planet today. If you don't have that, there's going to come a point where you're going to have a collapse and a breakdown in the population. And a great example of this deindustrialization today is Detroit. You know, this is what, you know, this is their poster child for the entire world. So the fact is that a derivatives bubble today is bigger than it has ever been before, and it could explode at any point. I want to very quickly, if we have about a minute, to explain to people how this, you know, derivative bubble works and why it's being actually pushed by the elite to self-destruct.
Yes, sir. Please break it down. We have an article up on Infowars.com today by Zero Hedge, breaking down that it's reached an all-time mega high since 2008.
You know, once you make the decision to create a bubble, any bubble, basically it becomes a pyramid scheme. So you're going to really de-link the financial games from the real economy, which you have to do if you're killing the real economy. But you want to build up the speculative bubble, you have to, you know, divorce it from reality. And derivatives is a great way to do that. It's like creating a game casino table, and derivatives are side bets on the movements of various things like bonds, for example, the value of bonds, interest rates, currency rates. So you speculate on these things, and you can bet on how the speculation is going to go. So basically, you pile derivatives on top of derivatives on top of derivatives. And a good example of that is, of course, the mortgage market, which everyone is now very familiar with, and which had mortgages which were used, you know, to back derivatives, at least theoretically back them. But the notion value of derivatives, the dollar amount of the derivatives that were created, were much more than the value of the mortgages. So you use the mortgages as a fuel to fuel these derivative machines, which then leveraged it, we don't know how many times over. And then ultimately this whole thing blew up completely, and, you know, this whole global system blew up, you know, blew out with it. And that was back in 2007. And as you said, we've talked about this in Ottawa when you were working on your documentary, when we met at the Bilderberg conference in Canada, Ottawa, in 2006. And needless to say, 2007, my words were prophetic. The whole thing just exploded, and needless to say, is going to explode again, because the idea is to destroy the world economy on purpose. And the people who think that that can be the case, because needless to say, if they do that, the elite will suffer as well. They will not suffer. They already control the entire planet. What they need to do is reduce the world's population. And the way to do that is to reduce wealth, okay, real economy. And that's how you know, that's why you deindustrialize the economy. That's why you deindustrialize the world. That's where the terminology zero growth comes in. And if people are interested, you can Google the terminology zero growth, and you'll be surprised how often these words appear on the front pages of the world's leading periodicals. It's not there because somebody made a boo-boo. It's there because they want you to know subliminally that they're doing this on purpose.
Well, that's right. And under Agenda 21 and so many other public statements under Cloward and Piven, you name it, they admit they want to make us poor so that only government controls, through corporations, the jobs you can get. They call it privatization. It's really the opposite. And then they can pick the winners and losers, and they are exempt from the regulations that they put on transportation, law enforcement, agriculture, banking, manufacturing, construction, education, immigration, military. It's only a two-tiered system that allows all this to happen. And that's why they promote racial division and all this and political correctness, is they need to divide all of us while they're busy really being the ultimate discriminatory group.
Absolutely, Alex. That's you explain it very well in Endgame, very, very well. It's if people haven't if you haven't seen the film, make sure you get a hands-on copy of Alex's film Endgame. It's an amazing film. I think it's like 3 hours long. Is it not, Alex? Or something
yes, sir. Like it's really about 3 films in one. We just call it Endgame.
It's an amazing compendium of exactly how this whole thing is being put together by whom. You have some amazing documentary images and footage, and I don't know where you got some of the photographs and film footage, but boy, I tell you,
we got it from you, and you did a great job.
There's some stuff there which I certainly didn't give you, but some old footage from from the early part of the century, and boy, an amazing film. You need to see it if you haven't seen it yet.
Well, I'll tell you, Daniel, I don't know how you do it. Whenever we'll be there with a telephoto lens, you'll go, that's such and such, that's such and such, and then it always turns out to be accurate. How important is it the people that are going to be there who won't be on the list?
I tell you that since Jim has done amazing work on uncovering Bilderberg and their influence. But since my book came out, The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, which you sold, and thank you so much for promoting my book on your site and in your shows. But it's got to the point right now where hiding the existence of Bilderberg has become silly. It doesn't make any sense, which is one of the reasons they decided, the Bilderbergs decided to actually put up their own webpage. They say, if somebody's going to talk about us, we might as well do it ourselves. They control the information, and most of it is fairly accurate, and most of the people who attend are there, and occasionally someone might not be on the list. But I tell you about, for the exception of 1 or 2 people, most of them are on the list of the attendees. What is important is to understand, again, that this is real, that the people who are there are important. Although, again, Bilderberg is not the apex of any pyramid. It's more of a conveyor belt. The real decision-making is done at even higher levels than Bilderberg or Trilateral Commission meetings, Council on Foreign Relations. But it's an important element of the
Sure, it's a major coordinating operation, as you said, conveyor belting all the groups in. In fact, we've confirmed that some of the Bilderberg steering meetings will be held privately right after the official trilateral meeting. So as you said, they kind of nest together. I think you used the term Russian dolls.
Exactly. I mean, you're talking about matryoshkas, obviously. But the point is, it's Bilderberg has they've always enjoyed their secrecy or their privacy, but it's gotten to the point where they can't hide any longer. But it's important to understand, again, a bit of a background, that Bilderberg today is a bit less important than it was 40, 50 years ago, just because of the people who attend. Again, you cannot compare the original Bilderberg attendees from 1950s and 1960s. These are the people who were born before the end of the 19th century, who went for the First World War, went through the Second World War. A lot of them were self-made men, and they built empires out of nothing, such as you talk about the Rockefellers, for example. And so these people, they were steeped in world politics at a level which today simply is just not feasible. And but it was a very important element of the oligarchical structures of the Cold War period. And it was important because what it meant was that it was a vehicle, Bilderberg meetings, through which private financier oligarchical interests were able to impose their policies on what is nominally sovereign governments. Now, what is interesting about the origins of Bilderberg is that the biggest scandal part of it was that it was very heavily populated by people who come out of the World War II Nazi apparatus.
That's right.
Who were basically cleaned up and dusted off. People such as Prince Bernard, who was, the face.
And who had giant hidden troves of the raw loot of Europe. I want to ask you about that, because I know you've written extensively about that, about all the art and the gold. I mean, just tens of trillions in today's dollars or euros. Final segment with Daniel Estulin. We've got several special reports that are going to be on the nightly news tonight, looking back at Bilderberg, looking forward, new intel being broken right now at Infowars.com by Paul Watson and our reporters. We'll be right back. The official list is now on Infowars.com. I'm going to going to do 5 minutes of overdrive after Daniel leaves us here in about 6 minutes. And I'm just going to play a compilation. A video we'll also post on Infowars.com titled Bilderberg Picked Obama or Bilderberg Made Obama. What did I say the headline should be? It was really good. How Bilderberg Made Obama. Something like that. It's 5 minutes long. It'll fit in the segment just perfectly. We'll have a bunch of stuff like this, looking back in the years past, and then forward with breaking stuff from Watson tonight, 7 o'clock Central, Infowars Nightly News. Please don't forget, this hour was brought to you by great sponsors with their non-GMO, super high-quality storable food, mypatriotssupply.com/Alex. Best storable food out there, and it has a great price. And they're supporters of this transmission, a win-win-win. mypatriotssupply.com/Alex or 866-229-0927. mypatriotssupply.com/Alex. And please don't forget that we have Estulin's excellent new book on transhumanism available at Infowars.com. Now, Daniel, before the break, I was asking you when you came back to break down I don't remember exactly what I was asking to break down. I get
Golden Lily. I think you mentioned Golden Lily operation, which went down the gold operation in the Second World War by the Nazis.
That's right. The missing Nazi loot and all the artwork and all the rest of it. That's right. Because you see a big Nazi contingent with Bilderberg. Please continue.
There's, again, the two individuals, the key individuals who were members of the Bilderberg right from the beginning, Prince Bernhard, one of the founders, SS carrying card member, and also Walter Heilstein, who's the first president of the European Commission, and the lawyer, Nazi lawyer, whose writings justified or convinced Hitler that he had the justification necessary to create the concentration camps all across Europe. So these are the two individuals who are very, very much involved in Bilderberg from the very, very beginning. And that's something that Bilderberg has tried to hide. And if you look at some of the individuals which you have today in key positions, such as Herman Van Rompuy, Barroso, Schultz, the outgoing president of Commission, these are the individuals who very much in the same vein as the early Walter Heilsteins and Prince Bernhards. But it's the whole point of a Golden Lily operation. Very interesting. We're talking about, if we believe the actual numbers, there's 140,000 metric tons of gold in the world, where there's at least 1.5 million metric tons of gold as a result of stolen loot by the Japanese and the Germans in the Second World War. Now, this information ever came out, that gold is as worthy as a common rock you find on the street. The entire world's financial markets will collapse onto itself, and that's one of the reasons why most of this loot is still hidden in the jungles of the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And actually, the whole point of this independent bank back in the Second Bilderberg Conference in 1955, it was discussed at the time when Sukarno was the president of Indonesia, was actually going to use that stolen loot, which he knew where some of it was, as the backdrop to create a non-aligned bank, which was actually going to be the key competition to the Western banks. And needless to say, the CIA took Sukarno 10 years later in the mid-1960s, and one of the key reasons they eliminated him was specifically because of Bilderberg's concerns for what would happen to the world economy and how Europe and the United States would lose control of the world financial power if Sukarno actually got his non-aligned bank up and running. And he could easily have done it because he had all the money as a result of all this stolen, trillions and gazillions of trillions of dollars worth of gold stolen by the Japanese and the Germans.
That's right.
In the Second World War.
Daniel, we're out of time. Will you promise to come back on in the aftermath of Bilderberg to track what happened?
We'll have all the information from our sources. And people can follow me at my Twitter account. It's at Estulin Daniel. And please keep listening to Alex Jones. He's one of the few sources out there who really gets the information on Bilderberg more tly anybody else.
And your website's excellent. It's in Spanish as well. Give that out for folks.
Yeah, it's DanielEstulin.com. My Twitter is Estulin Daniel. And, when we come back, maybe after the Bilderberg conference is over, we're almost done with my Bilderberg documentary. That's going to be out in about...
Can't wait, Daniel. Thank you. Let's get you back on next week. Thank you.
Visit GCN.
Yeah, wait to see that. We'll be right back with some overdrive and a special report. Nightly News tonight, 7. All right, folks, we're in overdrive covering Bilderberg 2014. It is treason. we witnessed at least 7 convoys of armed Secret Service entering the Westfield's Marriott, and internal sources confirmed that both candidates did attend at least one meeting inside the conference. While the Bilderberg Group was 100% successful in 2008 at keeping their name out of the mainstream media, they did not fare as well when it came to the exploding independent press. During the entire 2-day event, anti-New World Order protesters and alternative media encircled the hotel.
You are being exposed everywhere! From David Rockefeller, from John Edwards, from Bill Clinton! Your game of secrecy is over! You're gonna play get a game at the close, you piece of trash!
This is Bernanke, man! Bernanke, you're going down!
Obama, we know you're here, Obama. You cleared your schedule for the next 3 days. We know you're in Virginia.
Bilderberg always insist on a media blackout. By June of 2008, we had already figured out that Barack Obama was the elite's puppet of choice. The national media claimed that during the weekend the Bilderberg Group was scheduled to meet, that Obama had speaking engagements set for Chicago and the Midwest. We knew better. In a classic bait and switch, the Obama campaign told the press corps to get on Obama's campaign plane, and that Obama would join them on the flight to Chicago. Campaign staff then slammed the door shut. The fawning press had been shanghaied as Obama's campaign aircraft lifted off without Obama.
Robert, why were we not told about this meeting and that the senator wouldn't be on our flight until the doors were shut and we were about to taxi to take off?
Again, we had a desire, Senator Obama had a desire to do some meetings. Others had a desire to meet with him tonight in a private way.
So we kidnapped you.
We set up these meetings. They're being done tonight. Again,
Is there more than one meeting? Is there more than one person with whom?
I'm not going to get into all the details of the meetings. I don't know that I've got a ton more different answers for all of your questions.
Obama wasn't going to Chicago. He had a meeting to attend, a secret meeting.
Initially, it was believed that the secret meeting took place at Clinton's Washington, D.C. home. Obama's spokesman denied that, but won't confirm where the former rivals met. He also declined to comment on their topics of discussion.
For a day and a half, the mainstream media engaged in a wild goose chase, trying to find out where Hillary and Obama had gone. 3 cover stories later, the corporate press had to admit they had no idea where the 2 candidates had gone. And to this day, Clinton and Obama aren't talking.
Plenty of sources knew about this meeting, told us and others that it was at Hillary Clinton's house, but clearly it wasn't.
The Bilderberg Group sits at the top of the world power structure. 125 of the richest and most influential individuals on the globe make up its membership. From Istanbul, Turkey to Chantilly, Virginia, we have tracked the elusive Bilderberg Group. Treason. I remember that was in 2000 and it was 2 years ago, so it was like 2012 that happened. And it was so loud with like 1,000 people chanting treason that my ears were ringing for 2 weeks. But that's real audio folks just heard there. There are a bunch of those clips and stuff coming up tomorrow too, and live reports from Bilderberg.